to Wembley.
He's in, and this time he's in the back of the net. It's that night on his debut.
Hitzelsberger! Oh my word! Pick that!
Milberg is the man who may well have spoilt Arsenal's house.
This is absolutely outstanding!
Where as well? Oh, what a goal that was!
Oh, it must be! And it is! Peter Will!
Spotted the keeper off his line and then a superbly executed chip.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Villan, a new weekly vodcast talking about anything and everything from Villa Park. With me today is Johnny Shee.
Hello.
And Tom Crowder.
Hello.
And I'm Josh Enwood. This week we have got for you a full roundup of the Bristol City away game, a little overview as to what happened over the transfer window, as well as our opinions on Gabby Gate, and look forward to the Nottingham Forest and Brentford games. Also, don't forget that you're able to follow us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, which is The Villan Channel, all one word. And you'll also follow us on Twitter at @the_Villan_. Anyway, let's crack on. Bristol City away, a couple of weeks ago now. I know it's a bit of a painful topic, but we have to bring it up. Just going to play the game as well for everyone at home. So, Jack Grealish with a beautiful goal at the start, and then all went downhill from there, didn't it really, lads?
Yeah, I think the overriding thing for me was you kind of anticipated it was going to happen, because we kind of got used to going in the lead and then essentially losing. So it's like any Villa goal, when Villa score first, you're waiting for the inevitable defeat, which duly arrived. So,
what do you make of it, Johnny?
I think really what we've learned over the last couple of games, not only Bristol City, is that this league is really no walkover. We're going to come up against some tough teams and some hungry teams. I feel like we're going to be everyone's away day, and then when we're going away, everyone's going to be hungry to beat us. So it's extra difficult. We're, in my opinion, the biggest team in that league. So, it's going to be tough.
Definitely. But let's try and take the positives out of it first of all. Jack Grealish's goal, good goal at that. Bit of work, bit of build-up play at the start as well. He's really come on, hasn't he, over the last few games? You see him as kind of one of the talismanic players that's going to come out of this squad. I know that you've been raving on about him, Johnny, for months and months, that he's going to come on, and over the summer saying that he should really blossom in the Championship. I mean, do you have any thoughts, especially about the fact that he's just signed a 4-year deal as well?
Yeah, I'm so happy that he signed a 4-year deal, because I think that Aston Villa is an ideal place for him to flourish, really. We've got excellent facilities, we've got an excellent track record of developing young players. The other point I'd like to make is I think the Championship is actually a really good foundation block for him. After the FA Cup semi against Liverpool last season, you really could start to see his qualities as a footballer. I mean, even the players around him weren't, excellent, but he still managed to create a lot of very, very little service. And when he gets the ball into his feet, he's going to do some damage in this league. I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I think you could definitely see that as well. I mean, if you look at the Rotherham game as well, the goal which he went for, he basically went around 5 players to slot that in, including the keeper, and that's no mean feat, even if it was Rotherham, and they were battered and bruised. So I think that there's definitely that in there. What do you reckon, Tom?
I think it's with Grealish, it's always been a bit of, we kind of forget how old he is. I mean, most players at his age struggle even to make a first team. He's been to an FA Cup final, he's played quite a few games for Villa, and I think it was always goals were missing. He doesn't seem to have sort of a brilliant technique at shooting. It's always the one thing. I mean, he's certainly good at dribbling, finding the man, sort of nice, clever footwork, but you never really expecting some sort of thunderbolt finish or anything to come out of it. So the fact he is now scoring goals, and good one at that. I mean, there was one against Leicester at the start of last season. That was under Sherwood. That was a very few and far between. So now we need to get some regularity to his scoring. And I think, to be honest, the main thing that we need is goals in the Championship for Grealish. I think will do him the world of good, because at that age is really, it's good for his confidence. And obviously, we need goals from midfield anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call either Westwood or many of the others in there exactly goal machines. That's been a problem for Villa for probably the past 5 or 6 years. I don't think you disagree with that. I mean, I remember Westwood scoring a couple against West Brom. They're the only goals that stick out, and that was like 4 years ago. But apart from that, it just seems to be we've always been very Benteke heavy, or just not scoring at all. So the fact that now midfielders are chipping in.
Yeah, definitely. That's something which we'll touch back on as well in a minute. With midfielders coming in to score, because I think that we've actually signed some people that can do some damage in the middle of the park. Just coming back to the game a little bit, Tom, you mentioned earlier about it seems to be Villa's problem here. We seem to go up, and then as soon as one thing goes wrong, the head starts to drop. I mean, do you think that Villa actually have a huge confidence issue still? Is it still a hangover from last year?
I think it's hard to tell, obviously 5 games in, but obviously, if you're playing away from home and you score early, you're going to do well to hold on to a 1-0. And I think, to be honest, I do think it's too early to draw too many conclusions about it. But I think probably it does, set in that Villa get a lead, the size of the club, they know the pressure's there, and perhaps it's more the pressure now. Maybe that it's changed from last season of negativity of everything's going to go wrong, and maybe it could become a pressure thing, or we're up, let's try and hold on, because they don't have the confidence to sort of go and assert themselves in other clubs. So maybe it's a different kind of pressure that's causing them to sit back, but I'm pretty sure that'll go away in the next few games.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you reckon?
I totally agree with Tom. I think there really has been a bit of a paradigm shift from a club that is so used to just hanging on and trying survival to a club that's got to take it to other teams and try and win home and away. If there was ever a confidence issue within the squad, I think really it's being addressed by RDM. I think the players that we've recruited are natural leaders, and they know how to do a job in this league, and they know how to get promotion, which is probably the most valuable attribute at this stage. I know, it's too early to tell from this stage. I do feel we've been pretty unlucky actually in the past couple of games.
Yeah.
The whole,
I think that's one point. Sorry, Johnny, not to cut you off. If you look at the teams we have played, Huddersfield are going great guns. You've played, Bristol City away. We've played, we haven't played sort of the easy games at all. So I think, you need to sort of look at who we've been playing as well. But I think as well as generally, it is hard not to have the effect of last season, because last season we were terrible. And shifting a lot of the players out, there's still some players in there that that were under that. And keep if you look at Westwood and Ayew as well. They're sort of in the centre midfield and one of your strikers as well. So I think that winning breeds confidence, and as a team, even though it's a different team, that team hasn't won a lot of games. So until it starts winning games, that's when you can actually build confidence, because we'll wait and see.
So the reasons to why, Twitter kind of blew up with it as well. As soon as the second goal went in for Bristol City, all that you saw on Twitter and on Facebook and anyone that you spoke to was, here we go, same old Villa. It automatically went back to this idea that we couldn't get the job done. One goal goes and the heads go down. And you do have to admit, it has been something which has been seen this season in all the games. Sheffield Wednesday, goal goes in. Yes, it's at the end of the game, but straight away the heads go down. Huddersfield, goal goes in. Again, another late one. But there was still a good 15 minutes in order to salvage again. We were on top for most of that. So we probably should have at least gone on the offensive. We barely went into their half after that goal. And then Bristol City, you can't in the Championship concede 2 goals in 3 minutes.
No.
You'll get eaten alive. So if it's being addressed, which I wholeheartedly hope that it is, there needs to be something along the lines of, don't lose your heads straight away, fight a little bit more. Get whatever you can emotionally within the next 5 minutes after that goal, and go out and try and do your job.
I think in some ways that's kind of easier said than done. I mean, in many terms, it's good to say. I mean, the kind of confidence we're talking about essentially comes from self-confidence and self-belief. I'm not accusing any footballer in the modern 21st century of lacking self-belief. They've probably got too much of it. But certainly with Villa, it's not, you're not going to be a confident team when, times. It's only winning breeds confidence, and Villa need to go on a run, and then I think they'll be fine. And I think in this league, Villa are capable, with the strikers they've got, even with a little bit of fragile confidence, to score a lot of goals. I mean, you look at Stead. I mean, I know we're talking about later, Kodja. Grealish is scoring goals. Ayew is probably, let's be honest, one of the best players in the league anyway. Villa should score goals and should outscore teams anyway, regardless of whether they're a little bit fragile at the back. I personally would think it's just wait and see, and we should be okay. But it's not great signs.
Just a quick one going back onto confidence. That seems to be something which is quite strong within this at the start of the season. How have you guys seen Galini so far? He's had a couple of mistakes. Bristol goal, Huddersfield goal, Sheffield Wednesday. Do you think it's just early season nerves? Do you think it's something more than that? Is it really a progression from Guzan? Should we got rid of Guzan?
In my opinion, it was a very, very risky recruit going in for an untried goalkeeper, a young goalkeeper, in arguably one of the most important season we've had in years. I guess, I think in the long term, as an investment, he does look like a good goalkeeper. His distribution is good. His kicking ability is good, and he is a shot stopper. However, I just feel as if maybe we should have selected, or looked to recruit someone with experience at this level. Experience seems to count a lot in the Championship. But don't get me wrong, he does look like a talented player. And he does need a run of games to, develop that leadership quality and get used to playing with that back four.
It's very patchwork at the moment.
It seems patchwork.
I think it's two things. I mean, for me, first of all, it's the worst thing that really could have happened. I mean, you buy a 21-year-old at a big club, I mean, albeit in the Championship, and the last thing you need is mistakes costing it. So that's obviously going to shoot his confidence. The second thing, though, is, I mean, but I'm not drawing the same comparisons. I'm not saying we've bought De Gea, but if you remember him in England, he was getting crosses every week. He was costing them points, dropping the ball, equalisers, etc. And you can't, the worst thing you want to do is sort of rule someone out because they've made a few mistakes because you don't know what they'll go on to achieve. So I think you need to, it is what it is. I mean, if you see if Di Matteo sees that he's good in training, then you should keep playing him and hope that he obviously gets used to the occasion. But then again, Mark Bunn might provide a safer pair of hands, albeit I'm not entirely convinced on Bunn.
Twitter's investing good steer.
No, yeah. Wow.
Huddersfield keeper.
Yeah, he's a good number 2.
Yeah. I think that seems to be the consensus, actually. So, no, that was quite interesting over the last week as well. Quite a lot of people saying the same things that you guys have said. Quite a few looking at the other side of it as well, as that's 3 bad games out of 4, the 4th being Rotherham, and 2 shots in a game isn't exactly a test.
Yeah.
So I agree with you guys. I think that obviously confidence is huge as a goalkeeper. Mistake in the 86th minute in your first game in the English leagues as a young goalkeeper with a brand new backline does not help at all. The problem is that when it just keeps going and then keeps going, then you have to ask yourself, is it a confidence issue or is it the fact that there is something else beyond it? But
I think it is. I mean, it's a bit of a transfer. I mean, I had a few mixed feelings about the international break. I know everyone hates it, and certainly the papers get a bit, they come out with all sorts of rubbish because there's nothing really to talk about. And you never want to go into an international break. You want to keep the momentum going with winning. And I know we lost 3-1, but in many ways, it's probably the best thing. Villa could have had more time to gel a new group of players together. And also 2 weeks, or however long it was, separates his mistakes from the next game. And it probably, to be honest, time's a healer. I think he'll be in a better place when we go on this weekend than if we were gone straight back into it. So I think the break would have done them all good. And just hope we're ready to go, really.
Brilliant. Last one. for the Bristol City game, then we can move past it and draw a line under it and move on to the transfers, which is a much happier topic. Villa were fined in the end after the Bristol City game, just to add a little bit of insults to injury because of the number of yellow cards that we got. And it's something of which has probably been building up for the last couple of games, especially with Jordan Ayew and the amount of scrapes that he seems to be getting himself into, and rather self-inflicted as well. If you looked at the Huddersfield game after we conceded the equaliser, Ayew got very agitated very quickly, and it happened as soon as we conceded the goal against Bristol City to make it 1-1. You know, is there a discipline issue there? Is it something that we should be addressing, or at least looking at? Johnny, what do you reckon?
Okay, if I'm looking at the squad holistically, I believe that in terms of discipline, we're looking a lot more like better in defence. We're holding a solid shape. We're the additions of Elphick and Chester really shore things up, and we really, really need that in Championship because let's face it, in Prem we looked permeable, and we're conceding goals left, right, and centre. Regarding bookings in the Champ, it is a very, very physical league. So I think we need to get used to picking up more yellows, and it's a lot more open as a league. So there's going to be a lot more professional fouls in terms of pulling down the player when they're on the counter, and I feel like this is probably this is inevitable because the Premier League is far more conservative. But it really doesn't help that players such as Ayew, kicking out here and there, picking up like bookings. We can really, really sort of etch that out of our game, and we really could do with dropping bookings wherever we can.
Yeah, because we're going to start getting suspensions very soon if we continue this way. I mean, it's only 5 bookings until that, and if you consider a Championship season, it's not that long until you pick those up.
Yeah.
In the Prem, you could have been looking at being able to hide under that until almost Christmas time. In the Championship, for the same amount of games, you're there looking at only end of October, coming on to November.
Yeah.
So, if you look at it on the flip side, especially with a player like Ayew as well, which I think that all three of us have said, is one of the quality players that Villa has. If he goes down and gets 2 or 3 games suspended over the course of a season for rather silly things, that could be a real problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Tom, what do you make of it?
I don't know if it's one of frustration. I think he knows he's probably, in talent-wise, one of the best in the league, and it kind of, perhaps it sounds a bit simplistic, but it's sort of reminded me a little bit of the kid that sort of playground who thinks he's better than everyone else, and then sort of can't really take the ball being taken off him a bit, and then becomes sort of aggressive and kicks out, etc., because he thinks it will become easier than it does. I think once he gets used to it again, I think he needs an arm around his shoulder and a few kind words to him to sort of not be picking up all these yellows, etc., because it's a bit of a vicious circle. I think if he can just play his game, the goals will come, and then he won't perhaps feel the need again to be picking up all these bookings, etc.
Yeah. Right, let's move away from that. I think that's enough of looking at losses in the past. So this week saw deadline day. I don't think any of us were watching Sky this year.
No.
Probably the most exciting one that we've had in years, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to recap what actually happened over the probably 2 days actually, we should say. So over the course of that deadline week. So Jonathan Codger in for 11 million from Bristol City and 4 million in add-ons to become the most expensive Championship player in history. And then also Albert Adoma coming in undisclosed, but they're reckoning around 6 mil. And Adama Traore going the other way. So overall, 60 million quid spent, about 36 million net. Total shipping out of an old team. The Villa 11 looks completely different. First question to you both really is, do you reckon Tony's delivered on his promise? I'll start with Tom on that one.
I think he has. I mean, like you say, I mean, he's gone into the Championship, and we've bought. I mean, McCormack wasn't cheap as well. I think he must certainly be up there in the biggest transfer buys ever. I mean, I think I don't know if he gets lost in translation or what, but I mean, I don't think we call Kodjo world class. So I think perhaps we got a bit carried away with what he said. But then again, you know, we've got Jested, who is a proven Championship goal scorer, and I'm not just talking 10 or 15 goals. I mean, I don't know how many he got for Blackburn when they got promoted. It's almost 1 in 2, I think. Look at Kodjo again; he certainly fills goals. McCormack's probably has got the most goals in the Championship in the last, you know, cumulatively in the last 5 years. So we've got, on paper, 3 of probably the best Championship strikers there is. Once you look at the back, and we've bought well, so I would say, I think it's, I mean, we all love Tony from his Twitter, but I think it's hard to deny that he has delivered on that.
Yeah. Johnny, what do you reckon?
I think, you know, most of us will agree that this has been a pretty sensational transfer window. We have totally restructured the squad. We aim to totally restructure the mentality of the club. We are making a statement, that's for sure. You know, we have smashed the transfer record for the Championship. Regarding Jonathan Kodjo, I know there's a lot of mixed opinions about him. A lot of people said that perhaps we should have splashed out a bit more on Hernandez, but it looked like personal terms just going to stop that from coming through anyway. Yeah, lost in translation a bit in world class, but certainly he does provide a completely different option in regard to attack. And I think he is that player when we're 1-0 up to bag a second out of one of the numerous chances we'll create with that midfield and those attacking options. So I think he is actually invaluable. And the price tag is steep, don't get me wrong, but I kind of feel like now this is just market inflation. This is what happens when a BT tool comes in the top league.
Yeah.
The Championship teams have to compete. And if you want to make it in the Prem, you want to make it to the Prem, you have to splash out. And that's just the times we live in, I think.
Well, with that, I mean, I can move on to the next question, which comes into that, which is that a lot of Bristol City fans, especially when Kodjo left, were accusing Villa of buying the league, which I think that everyone, you know, was expecting to, you know, be the battle cry of everybody else in the Championship, saying, oh, you know, Prem teams come down, take what they want, and then get back up at the first call. And especially in terms of the deals in the Prem, etc., you know, we're actually still under the financial fair play with the net spend as well because of how many players that we've shipped out. So it's actually 36 mil that we've spent net, and we get 40 in parachute payments. So even from that, all our wheeling and dealings, it's ended up still leaving us in the black on that front. Obviously, there's wages and that to take across. So, you know, that's my views on that. I mean, I don't know if you have a different opinion. I know, Johnny, you've spent a lot of time watching Football League football. So you might have a different opinion to me, for example, especially being from Peterborough as well, where a lot of players, you know, you see them develop, you see them leave. I don't know as to whether or not that's something of which you might have a different opinion on, or whether you think that they're just entitled to do what they can to get back up.
I do actually totally understand Bristol City's frustration with this because having a Peterborough season ticket for 8 years, I saw a number of very, very talented footballers leave. Asombalonga, Tomlin, Mikael Smith, Washington, you know, they all went for big money fees. And it does feel like, you know, how do we push on? But from a different perspective, Aston Villa, you could argue, have pretty much had the same treatment in the Premier League. Every time we've had a player come through or show potential, we've been poached. So, you know, unfortunately, this is how the financial structure of the league, you know, is. This is what happened, and I do understand Bristol City's frustration with that. The other thing I would add is I feel like 15 million for Bristol City is probably a very, very good fee to receive from us. They've got a history of recruiting talented League One players and bringing them through, and you know, and making them play very well. Like, for example, Lee Tomlin, he gave us a lot of problems last weekend. Mark Little was another one. And I feel like overall it could probably be will help them strengthen significantly in the Championship. And, with clever loan recruits such as Abraham, I think they can seriously do some damage.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
I mean, it's a debate. It's not just the Championship, is it? It's you see it in the Bundesliga now, you see it in the Premier League. I mean, I think we've kind of we've gone down a road in football, whether anyone likes it or not, that essentially money means winning, and winning means more money, and it's a bit of a, it's the way football's gone. Whether you like it or not, obviously Villa have been stung by, players on 80 grand a week, etc. So I don't think money's particularly, benefited football in many ways. But I think if Villa have got the money, then it's silly that they're not going to spend it. And you can't tell me that Bristol City wouldn't go and do the same if they had the parachute money as well. So I do understand their frustration with the big boys coming down. I mean, if you look at other clubs, for me, it highlights why it's so important Villa do get promoted straight away by having an approach, or not this year, the next year. You look at Leeds United. Leeds are a massive club, and now they're just another Championship club, because every season you're competing with these teams dropping down from the Premier League. They've got the parachute payments, and you're trying to climb a mountain every season. And that's why Villa really do need to take this approach, really, because there's not. I mean, each year that goes past, you're probably getting less and less likely to get promoted. So.
Yeah, kind of like a one shot.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, regardless of the size of your club, let's say in 5 years' time, Bournemouth were to get relegated, we consider ourselves a bigger club than Bournemouth, but with the TV money and the revenue that they probably saved up, etc., where all the money is these days, they're going to be in a much better financial position than Villa would be, because ticket sales and shirt sales don't really mean much to clubs anymore.
So, going back to our signings on deadline day, so Kodja and Adoma, and looking at the situation that we were in just before that with the Bristol City loss, were those the signings which you were looking for? I know that Kodja, for example, isn't what Tony would have, when he said world-class striker, I think he was meaning Hernandez rather than Jonathan Kodja. But,
yeah.
Looking...
I mean, he's an international, to be fair, so.
Yeah. Yeah, there might have been a bit of lost in translation there, but I'm trying to give the man his dues. Were those sort of signings which you think that we needed when you looked at the squad against Bristol City and what you envision it to be now? Does Kodja and Adoma fit the bill? Yeah,
I think that they do. I mean, I think the first base was get captains in, strengthen the spine. McCormack, Chester, it was good, and we really did strengthen it. Elphick as well, which I think's probably been our best signing, if I'm honest. I think Elphick will turn out to be our best signing. But against Sheffield Wednesday, the first game, you kind of felt Villa were all half, no part. And we're never really going to... When we've watched a few Villa games, Villa could have played for 4 hours and not scored a goal. So I think buying these... They're as good as players as we're going to attract, aren't they? I'm not going to, pretend to know so much about Kodja that I'll talk, that I think Villa will definitely get promoted now. But, certainly, if you look at his goal that he scored in the qualifier when he played there, I mean, if he does things like that for Villa, then...
In fact, I'll spin that on now, actually. Have a look, guys, at Kodja's qualifying goal. It's quite a good one there. Sorry, carry on.
No. Johnny, what do you think?
I think Adoma was certainly a very important recruit. First of all, a corner taker who can actually deliver with tangible quality. And you feel if you provide him, Gested with any form of a good ball, he's going to smash in the goals. And I have seen him a few times, actually. And he likes to come in off the wing and sort of play off the last centre-back and just snatch a few goals that way. I do think Villa, we lack a player like that. And it'll be good just to see him bag a few, poach a few goals, because we haven't had a poacher in a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's definitely what I saw as well. If you look at Codger's highlight reel, for example, and Adoma's, both of them are all goals of which are from quite close range. Those where they're getting in the box, they've got a man on them, they're like, "No, mate, this is mine." Tap, goal, stupid celebration. It's all very much. It's all very much a case of players that know how to finish.
Yes.
When was the last time Villa had a finisher? Benteke. But even then,
Yeah, I was going to say.
even then, no, most of Benteke's goals, if you actually look at them, are from relatively outside of the finishing zone, free kicks or headers.
Yeah, but
If you're looking for someone who's going to just waltz into the box and then put in a little side foot, Benteke would usually get shoved off the ball by that point. Or more just there's someone quicker coming in to take it off him, which is why probably, we needed someone with Benteke at the time as well, who was able to take some of that flack off him, because Benteke would be the one banging him in from the crosses. We needed someone to whip around and try and finish him off, which I think that we tried too long to let Gabby do. But I can't, Gabby's probably finished about 4 goals, for 4 shots in the last 100 that he's taken. Well, obviously not that outrageous, but, the point still stands. And, by that means, Codger's definitely, and Adoma, they're 2 players that know how to get it done. And I think that's what Villa's whole transfer policy has been about. It's been about players that get it done, and from the entire range as well. So, like you said, Tom, Elphick. Elphick is all about heart on sleeve. He'll put himself in harm's way as long as it means not conceding a goal. Yeah. First game of the season proves that. Jedinak in the middle. What a brilliant signing Jedinak was.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't think of a more Mr. Palace when he was over there. And if you're showing emotion and heart at Palace, which is one of those real sort of fire pit sort of stadiums where the fans are on you, atmospheres at you, and you're playing really tough football, which I think at Palace is all about, that at Villa Park is going to be brilliant. So I think that we've recruited, real go-getters, and the real gaps of which we've been lacking for probably a good 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah.
And Martin Hill era sort of characteristics.
I agree, yeah, totally.
So, moving on, still on transfers, do you guys think that now then we've moved on? Obviously, early in the season to tell, but in terms of the squad, in terms of the characteristics of what this new squad seems to be, do you reckon that we've cleared the cobwebs, as it were, from last season?
Yes. Multifaceted attack from all parts of the pitch. That's a huge, someone who will take a long shot, Ross McCormack. Someone who will score from out wide, Adoma. Someone who will poach a goal, Khadija. Someone who will score an absolutely brilliant header, Gusted. And finally, some leaders. That's the critical point for me. It will not be long until this team gel, in my opinion, and we will definitely score a considerable amount of goals this season. I'll be very, very surprised if we don't finish outside the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the same as Johnny, really. I think I don't think we could have done any more. So, again, it's the confidence that needs to be built, etc., etc. But realistically, like Johnny said, we've bought well. I don't think you can say we haven't. Lescott's gone. Guzan's gone, whatever your feelings on that. But I think if you look at sort of Guzan and Lescott, it got to the stage where, in many ways, their careers have become... It's like being the manager. When you become untenable, when you're so unpopular before it's almost better to move on and start again. And I think that was in everyone's interest that a lot of these players did move on. I'm still not convinced by Westwood, to be honest. I'm not sure he's...
You got Richards there as well. Richards was actually stopped from moving by Roberto Di Matteo as well. So
I think Richards is a bit different. I think he showed a bit more fight, perhaps. I mean, Lescott, let's not even compare him with him, but Richards always showed a bit of passion. He was very honest in interviews, whether that was the best for the media at the time when you're sort of losing, and basically, it wasn't perhaps the best interviews he was giving, but at least he was frank and open, and the fans sort of got on side a little bit. And I don't think anyone ever accuse him of a lack of effort. Lack of quality, yes. I mean, you would have thought a stint in Serie A would have sorted out positioning, but it seems to me it worse. So yeah. I don't know what he was doing there, but I wouldn't say Richards is a hate figure at Villa, and I think he's certainly in a position that if he got his head down and started playing well, he could get back in the team, and I think a lot of fans wouldn't have too many problems with that.
Yeah, I just think back to the Wickham game in terms of people's thoughts on Richards. That was kind of the turning point of that, and it did kind of create a bit of a split with the fans when a couple of fans went up to Micah Richards in that game, and Richards said exactly how he felt, of which I think a lot of fans gave him credit for, and others compared him directly to those who were pissed off with the regime, who were angry at everything going on at the club, roped him in with it, especially seeing as he was captain as well. Your point, Tom, about conceptions of fans to the old regime and the old squad, captain going down with his ship is kind of the phrase which I'm thinking of in terms of that. And I think quite a few fans did think that as well. So that would kind of be my point on that.
To continue that, you were talking about turning a corner. It's remarkable, really, after last season, how far we've come in terms of just general atmosphere and how we feel towards the club. There's no more. It feels like there's no more animosity there. There's a real connectivity between fans, players, manager, board, owner, and I think really to be a successful football club, that's what's required. So I think we are definitely on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, I feel actually happy to buy my ticket now.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's an obligation anymore. I feel like it's more a case of I'm actually really looking forward to Saturday. Rather than, oh God, I'm going to see Villa get relegated against Bournemouth.
I can remember when I went to Tuesday nighter against Everton, bought my ticket for £6.75, hammering it down with rain, just see us capitulate after 15 minutes. And I thought, what a waste of £6.75.
I believe I actually texted you at the point saying, see, that's what you get when you decide to go with obligation.
Yeah.
Keen to move on from transfers. I think that we've almost talked it to death, really, but just a quick fire questions for both of you. Who do you reckon's been our best signing? Who do you reckon could be the one who doesn't get up to scratch, just to add a bit of devil's advocate into it? And who do you wish that we hadn't let go, if anyone? I mean, if you want, I can tell you mine whilst you guys think.
Yeah, if you go for yours first, it was okay.
I've got two of the three. I'm struggling on the middle one.
Right, so in terms of the one which I think that I'm really looking forward to seeing, it is Ross McCormack. I know that he's probably been built up as the guy who, he was the prolific signing to get everyone through the doors at the start of the season, to give everyone that boost, to show that we are about building up from the Championship. But the guy gets goals. We were really seriously lacking in the goals department last year, and just someone who takes a go. Ross McCormack's had a shot from 35 yards, I think, in every single game. He's made the most chances in the Championship already, and I think that with a bit more firepower like we've just got as well, and a bit of luck going on our side rather than it hitting the woodwork about 17,000 times in the space of a month, we'll actually be able to see Ross's contributions come to a lot more goals, which is what Fulham were always seeing, what Leeds were always seeing. I wanted to sign Ross McCormack about 4 years ago. I'm glad to finally see him at the club. The one who I don't think will be up to scratch, Galini. And it pains me to say it. I really, really do hope that it does turn around. But when you see on the day that we sign him, someone from the Italian fan forum saying that he's got wrists like biscuits, you've got to kind of take that into consideration. And, from what we've seen, his wrists are like biscuits.
Yeah.
He's a pariah. He's a pariah in a league that doesn't give up. And we saw it with the Bristol City game a couple of weeks ago. Parry straight to a Bristol City player because you're going to be charging into the box. You're going to be scrapping for every ball you can get. And if you get a reputation for it, then they're never going to stop. They're going to know it's your weakness. So I think it's going to be a very tough season for Galini, even if it starts picking up. I think that, if teams start catching on to that being a factor, and if it is a factor, I mean, we don't know that for sure. The one that I wish we didn't let go, I think that we all know what I'm going to say if I'm saying that Galini's on its hard to scratch. I really miss Brad Guzan. I don't care. Trash me in the comments, people. Please. Down there. Let's write a comment.
Wow.
It's going to be me and Johnny.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Because if the name's Josh, please tell me as to how terrible a human being I am. I think he's the best goalkeeper we've had in years. I really do. I think that he has been terribly, terribly handled in all of this. Last season was not his fault. He made brilliant saves. Well, the one example I'll make is we all went to the Bournemouth game last season, and he had an absolutely outstanding game in that. He made a world-class save, right-hand corner, tipped it round. In the Premier League, that is one of the ones that goes onto highlight reels for years, if you're Man United. But,
a bit of a swipe there.
yeah, for Villa fans, we've got it. And all you heard was sarcastic jeers from the whole, which is soul-destroying. I don't blame Brad Guzan for leaving and for actually probably resenting the club a little bit.
I mean, originally as well. Wasn't he was let go and then re-signed and all sorts of wasn't it?
Because he was surplus to requirements because of Friedel.
Yeah.
Feels like, also, I feel like the fans' perception of him is a bit jaded because last season that defence was awful. He was playing behind the worst defence I think Villa's ever had.
You say he was basically playing behind air.
It's pretty, yeah, he basically was.
I mean, in the Premier League, you usually go 4 or 5 shots a game. 4 or 5 shots a game on target max. And that's if you're having a bad game. Guzan was seeing 13, 14. And in the Premier League where the shots are of such a good quality as well. So I think that I hope that we don't regret letting him go and signing Galini, obviously. Just at the moment, I've always been a Guzan fan anyway, so I'm kind of feeling a little disheartened by that at the moment.
I think the one thing that fans should recognise is that he was pretty much an integral player regarding the survival of Aston Villa over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
He was an important part of that.
The amount of points he kept for the club in comparison to the ones that he's been responsible for. I'm not saying that he's never had a bad game or goals haven't been his fault, definitely. But the defence hasn't helped, and also he has pulled out some real flipping great saves.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will get off my little soapbox now. Again, comments down there. Call me whatever. Do not care. Keepers Union. Johnny, give us yours.
Right. Player... To be totally honest, I'm not fussed about any of the players leaving.
No?
I feel like it was necessary to completely rid that losing mentality we've had for so many years. There's no one particularly there, which I thought, oh, what a shame he's leaving. On a personal level, maybe Kieran Clark. I saw him, that jackhammer of a tackle he did on Schlupp. But really, any sort of extension from that, I'm not that bothered.
Fair enough.
Players that I'm excited that we got in, Elphick and Chester. I think they are two, quality signings. I think if we're gonna get out of this league, centre back partnerships are just integral. And you know what? A sign of a quality player is when they can slip into a team and the transition is just seamless. And you kind of feel that with Elphick and Chester, don't you? And you've got two natural leaders there, and I feel like Elphic's more of the verbal leader. Chester's more of the lead by example type player. So the blend between them is, admirable, to say the least. And the other question was, who do
you reckon won't be up to scratch?
Oh, okay.
Testing one.
I would be inclined to say Villan as well, but maybe, from the football I've seen, they all look very good recruits.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps purely because of the curse of the fullback at Villa, Richie DeLate.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a curse there, isn't there? Yeah,
and there's no actual concrete basis behind it, but it's just the kind of, that taboo subject that...
Well, the Mail jumped on his back immediately at the Bristol game, didn't they? Like, practically 60 minutes after the game finished, there was an article saying what was Richard DeLate's debut like against Forest, and they just ripped into him. Saying, the second goal was all down his throat. Looked a bit...
He did look frail. But
he only moved the day before, or something like that.
To bed in, I think when that back four gets organised, will be a very solid unit. But I hope he, plays. Obviously, I want him to do well. But if there is a weak link, that's Richie DeLate.
Yeah. Right, let's hear it, Tom.
Okay, best signing, Elphick. You're going to hate me now, but no, a bit left wing. But I think one of the disappointments, I can't pin it down to one, but I think it'll be one of the strikers, simply because where you've got 3-4 players that scored 20 goals for their previous club or 15, 20 goals, I think it's natural that one of them's not going to quite fit in, not going to score the goals. And they all play different ways as well. I mean, I know Johnny was saying, we've got different players to do different things, and we do. But I think it's naturally that we're going to start to favour one way or the other. And I think one of them probably not be a complete disappointment, but I think won't be able to sort of, I don't think we're going to have 4 strikers scoring 20 goals. It's just not going to happen. So I would say it's probably going to be one of the strikers. I hope it's not, and Villa score, 100 odd goals. But
can I push you for which one? Because there's 3 there.
Go on. Who have we got?
Well, you've got McCormack, and I guess you can count Adoma as well.
I'd say Adoma, I think. But then again, he had a smaller price tag, so I don't want to say Codger. Knocked them all out. But I'd say.
Codger has the biggest danger.
Yes. Yeah,
he's got the biggest danger because he's got the biggest price tag, and also.
And I think people might expect another Benteke from somewhere, and it's not going to be. We're not going to have that level of player against.
No, we said that when Benteke.
If I can add something to that, with Codger, I think it's very different playing for a club, firing in goals who are fringing relegation, to firing goals to mount a championship title-winning challenge.
Yeah,
I think the type of pressure is different. It'd be really interesting to see how he coaches that.
Which one do you reckon that we shouldn't have got rid of, Tom, if any?
I'm with Johnny. I would have gone further. I'd like to see Gabby gone as well. I know we're going to talk about that later, but I just think...
not a single one you'd like to see on the books?
They're going to shut the door on the way out, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it was just ridiculous. None of them really cared. I think they're picking up the paycheck. None of them... Let's be honest, none of them were good enough to play for Villa. None of them... Any player that was in a team that got under 20 points in the Premier League season was having a big old wage bill as well. I mean, I haven't got much sympathy. And if you look at some of the clubs they've gone to, I mean, they hardly set the world alight. I mean, Guzan looked dodgy as anything in his first Premier League game, and he's gone for a backup at Middlesbrough. Okay, Valdez is the number one. Lescott's gone to AEK Athens. And to be perfectly honest, if it was the other way around and Lescott was at AEK Athens and we signed him, a 34-year-old from the Greek league, I think, that's the level of player we were looking at. So get rid of them all.
That's exactly what Paddy Riley would have been looking at, surely.
I'm looking at Westwood. I think his corners are awful. I don't think he adds much. I was hoping Burnley would go in for him as well, so he can delight the Premier League each week again. And Agbonlor just needs to go as well.
Speaking of And
I've opened that.
you opened that up perfectly. So, Johnny, I'm going to hand this little bit over to you because you've written a nice little article for us on the whole Gabby Gate saga. If you want to read it, by the way, the villanchannel.wordpress.com. Johnny, I'm going to let you talk through your feelings.
Gonna keep this short and sweet. Gabriel Agbonlahor stealing a living for the last 5 years. Any fan that defends him is purely doing it out of sentiment. Completely embarrassed the club over that time period. His lack of professionalism, seeing him gain like 3 stone, lose his pace, and put in half-assed performances week in, week out. When we were struggling in the Premier League, he was out taking laughing gas and out having beers with the lads, shisha, womanising. That's our club captain. From a footballing perspective, one-footed, slow, no ability to hold the ball up, not exactly a natural leader, on 52k a week, drops Mike.
Yeah, I think that everyone's kind of grown tired with Gabby now. There's still a few out there, of which I think is very, and probably Tom will have a bit of perspective on this because you've been following Villa for as long as I have. The Villa mentality is very much, one of our own is one of our own. And, if you've come through the rank and you've gone through the turmoil with us, and you deserve some sort of form of respect. But I think that the last season, especially, has kind of cut all of those sort of ties now, where sentiment stops.
I would say, Ori, Gabby, I mean, you try and get rid of the sentiment. There's nothing more you'd love than to lose some weight and start. Because Gabriel Bonhort 5 years ago would score so many goals in the Championship. You got 3 England caps, I think it is. I mean, but then again, I think it's been a gradual thing. He put on all the muscle weight. And if I'm honest, I think he got used to sort of eating bigger portions and building weights and etc. And then I think he just sort of stopped doing any form of cardio. Forgot he was a footballer, and then just became sort of a half-assed bodybuilder.
Go to the footballer that doesn't do cardio.
Yeah, well, I mean, he clearly wasn't. And I think it says it all when the club captain is too overweight to play in the Premier League. I mean, you really can't make it up. And he's become a bit of, him and Lescott became figureheads of pretending to be fans. I mean, and I think with the whole Reading thing, it shows again. I think he's happy for the paycheck. And I think he just likes the place. Probably knows all the cleaners, knows the dinner ladies. I don't really think he likes playing football that much, to be honest anymore. I think if he did, he'd go to Reading, he'd lose some weight, and he'd go again. But I think he's happy to turn up, have a couple of hours on playing a bit of football, have a shower, and go home. And I don't think he really cares anymore. And if Villa needs to get rid of that mentality, because one player like that starts going around. Because if you're a new player, you signed and you're on £20,000, and you're looking at this guy who's on 50 grand a week, and quite frankly, still looks overweight to be playing. It's not exactly the greatest precedent to set the dressing room. So I think Gabby needs to go. So I do agree with Johnny. I would like to see sort of a velvet divorce, of perhaps.
Well, the velvet divorce would have been the last.
Not completely tarnished.
In fact, that leads on perfectly to my next question there. How do you reckon that Gabby should be? How do you does this tarnish everything? The last season, flabby Gabby not going to Reading, Tony basically saying he's not wearing the shirt again. Does that tarnish everything? I
mean, 100% yes. I think, how do you come back from that? If the owner of the football club has just condemned you in the public domain, that's, a pretty condemning review of your performance. Don't get me wrong, he was a potent attacking force in his prime. And I think a lot of Villa fans, they will say, yeah, he was, one of the golden boys of that generation, and he was, one of our own. Thing is, I think the best option for him now, lose some weight, if possible, find a loan deal that works for him, which is probably not going to happen, or just literally run his contract down and just retire. Because anything he does now is going to be heavily scrutinised.
I think it's some of this. He clearly doesn't have the hunger for it, does he? I mean, in many ways, he's making the decision for many Villa fans, isn't he? Because you start to say, well, if you lose some weight, but I don't think he hasn't shown any willing to really go and do it. And I don't, actions speak louder than words, doesn't it? He's clearly happy not to play football, and he's clearly overweight. So, I mean, you don't know what's going on in his private life, etc., but there doesn't seem to be much willing to go. And above all, I think it's just a shame because when you looked at him as sort of a 19-year-old, and that's when he was looked at his best because he was so fast that, and pace is probably the most dangerous weapon. And as soon as he started bulking up, I think everyone had their concerns that things could go a little bit downhill.
Yeah, so looking forward to the weekend, got a double game week, both at home, Forest and Brentford. What are our thoughts?
Right, close out the main goal threat in Agbonlahor and Sombalonga.
Bloody hell, Agbonlahor is the main goal threat. All right, mate.
Got loan deal to Nottingham Forest. Plays at Villa Park, bags a hat trick. Jonathan his words. Anyway, no. Sombalonga close him out. I think the best way of doing that is, I think, perhaps playing two CDMs. Just cut off the supply line, really scrap in midfield, stop the supply, win the ball, high up the pitch. And I think you've got the attacking options to break them down. They do concede goals. They ship free against Wigan. And like 2 weeks ago.
They scored 4 though.
I know they scored 4, but this is what I'm saying. Cut out the goal supply. And I think we'll be all right. That being said, I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet against them.
Tom, what do you reckon, Forest?
I think we'll win. I've got a good feeling. I think we've had, obviously, the break from the internationals. I think we'll have a bit more time to obviously do a bit of work, those that weren't there. Recover. I think Villa are a better team than Forest on paper. You can't obviously say... I think Villa will get 4 or 6 points from the next 2 games.
Bold.
That is bold, but I think luck needs to change a little bit. I think on another season, Villa should have had another 4 points and at least 3 points more than they had, more than they currently have. I mean, Huddersfield was a joke. Sheffield Wednesday wasn't exactly great, and that would put us in the sort of well in the top echelons of the Championship. So I think we are a good team, and I think we've got better players than a lot of the other teams. And I think it's just more about doing the business now.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that all those points are definitely valid. I mean, Forest, the goal threat, got to shut down Bristol City longer. I don't think that he'll set the league on fire this year, as quite a few have predicted. The Villa View, for example, putting him down as Championship Golden Boot winner. And I don't think that will happen because Forest's supply line isn't good enough to support him throughout. And I think that especially during the winter, they'll start breaking up here. But if we're looking just at the next game, Forest's goal threat and our confidence maybe because of Bristol City, that could mean that we could be seeing either both teams scoring. I think that Forest games throughout the season, you can always predict that both teams to score because that seems to be the way that Forest are playing at the moment. They're playing with a lot of intensity, but with a lot of gaps at the back. With that being said, I agree that we've probably got the best squad. I think that we've got players that, after the international break, really want to go out and prove themselves, get the points on the board, push up the table, early doors as it is. And it's supposed to be really good attendances for both games as well. Just tried to book tickets for me and Johnny. Forest have sold out their allocation.
Yeah, I'd expect that.
Yeah, it's set to be a real East versus West derby. Not that anyone truly counts that as a derby, but
yeah.
But it's going to be one of those games I think where we see quite a lot going on. So I'm going to predict score a both teams score win for us there, a 2-1, I think. What do you guys reckon score-wise?
I'm going to say 2-2 Villa Forest.
Oof.
Yeah, I think we. Yeah, sorry lads, and I'm going to say that we'll beat Brentford 2-0. I think they've got a load of new recruits coming in from League One at the beginning of the season. It is a big step up, and I think just going to Villa Park, packed out, bloody the whole gate, like gazing at you, you're going to struggle. So yeah,
Brentford beating Notts Forest though.
I know, but there's a lot of bogus results at the beginning of the season. But I do think we've got a lot more quality than them, and we'll beat them.
I think actually Villa will. I know you guys gone for score draws or score win. I think Villa will win 2-0. I don't think Villa have looked that bad at the back. Actually, I think they've looked quite all right. I mean, we've not let loads in.
I'm worried about.
That's true, but I think we should be all right. I think 2-0. It's actually the best form of defence at least. So yeah, 2-0, and then Brentford I think will be. I think they'll part the bus a bit, so I'm going to go for a 1-0.
Yeah, I think 1-0 as well for Brentford. I think exactly like you said, they're going to part the bus. I think they've got that mentality as well, that they know that they can get something on the break when they can build from the back, and I think that a lot of teams when they go to Villa Park this season will part the bus.
Yeah.
Just because they're going to see that as big game mentality. What do you do in the FA Cup third round when you go to Old Trafford? You part the bus. I'm not saying that this is the same sort of scenario, but for quite a few Championship teams, it's definitely going to be the biggest game on the calendar, and that's exactly the sort of mindset that you go into in those games, unless you've got some real bottle. So, yeah, 1-0 I reckon for Brentford, but 2-1 Villa against Forest. I think that we'll get firing all cylinders, and Forest will get one back, rather than. I reckon we'll go 2-0 up and then start to look weary towards the end. And then we'll start to panic with 5 minutes to go. Put 11 guys in the line.
Oh man!
Have a penalty missed. corner off the line.
Will it be fleeting and hail as well, and thunderbolts?
Yeah, just everything thrown at Villa Park.
Or adverse weather conditions.
Yeah.
Get them in there.
God, now you're making me want to check the Met Office. Just a few sort of things regarding the weekend as well. Grealish looks set to be okay. Jedinak, uncertain at the moment. A few people coming back from international duty as well. Do you reckon that that's going to have that much of an adverse effect? Do you reckon we've got strengthening depth enough? I
think they're going to be buoyed by their international appearances. I think Chester got a good result. I think playing for the country at times is actually beneficial, especially at the beginning of the season. Really, I think maybe gives them a sense of purpose, and then going back to club game, they're really up for it. They should be fit. So, yeah, I think we'll be all right.
That pretty much concludes it then for this week's episode. Come back and join us next week. We'll be talking about the 2 games between Forest and Brentford, as well as looking forward to the next fixture, as well as anything and everything that comes out of Villa Park, including the supporters consultation as well that was held last month. So thanks Johnny, thanks Tom, and we will see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Villan channel. Also check out our Twitter at @the_Villan_. Twitter wouldn't let me have anything else. And also on Facebook and our WordPress.